Hi, and welcome to CryptoBiography. I'm your host, Brandon Starr. This is episode 253 of CryptoBiography, and it's the start of a new short story called The Anti-Artist. And it should be a relatively short story. This is not going to be another, 17-parter, 22-parter like the last couple have been. This is probably going to be a 2, maybe 3-parter, something like that. Unless, of course, something changes. Sometimes things do change while I write them, as you know. All right, so it's called The Anti-Artist, and here we go. What? Why? Tom Hastings, Ph.D., lifted his face from the computer screen. No one was nearby to hear him, so no one asked what had surprised him. He looked at the screen longer, then he grabbed his phone and looked up a number. He called it and waited. Yes, Valerie? It's Tom Hastings. Yes, it's been a long while. Am I right in thinking you're still a journalist? Are you interested in a story? The next day, he met Valerie for lunch downtown. He was feeling every second of his 46 years. Valerie would be the same age. They'd gone to college together. But for whatever mix of genes, good health practices, and makeup, looked about 10 years younger. But if she put effort into it, he couldn't tell. He actually couldn't even tell if she was wearing makeup, and her brown hair in a simple bob that touched her shoulders didn't have a single strand of gray that he could see. He'd had a bit of a crush on her back then. He might even allow himself to confess that he still was attracted to her, but it was like an old ember buried under years of ash. They'd occasionally caught up with each other, but really only every few years. It was a faint regret scratching the back of his mind, but perhaps this would make up for it. He knew Valerie Bown-Hetrick, famed journalist, would be interested in what he had to say. Valerie kept the pleasantries short. You have a story for me. Tom had a whole spiel written in his head, which was short-circuited by her jumping to the point. Right, he said, getting his thoughts in order. Well, I think you know that I focused on 20th century art for my whole career. She nodded. He noticed that she had done him the courtesy of taking out a pen and paper and had already started jotting down notes. Go on, she said. And about 4 years ago, early 2042, something odd happened. I was working for the MoMA already by then, and one of the exhibitions was going to be a modernism exhibit with a special emphasis on Mondrian. The MoMA has a number of Mondrian in its collection. We were looking for more Mondrians to show in the exhibit. We started with some ins we had with a few museums, going after the low-hanging fruit with places we either had built some credit with or were willing to do a favor for later. But, Valerie shrugged, but what? Tom took a moment. But we didn't have much luck. Not because they weren't willing to work with us, because they had sold their Mondrians over the last couple of decades. Any luck with the buyers? Well, no and yes. No, at first. We were getting stonewalled. They were saying how the paintings were investments, being kept in special climate-controlled vaults to preserve them, and they weren't looking to loan or rent them out at this time. But then that changed. We kept pushing, not too hard, I'm sure, and kept looking for more works without luck, but then one day they started saying yes. Valerie was writing. She stopped shortly after he stopped talking. Who is they exactly? Well, starting in the early 20s, companies started buying art, not for museums or collectors, but for investors and as investments. A lot of them went into storage, and they've slowly been getting harder and harder for the public to see in any way. You may have heard about the backlash that started making them a little more amenable to being shown at museums. That was maybe 10 years ago. But that has been, in the end, very hit and miss. So this sort of stonewalling has become part of the business. But anyway, these companies started saying yes, and we got our exhibit. How many companies were there who loaned Mondrians for the exhibit? And how many did they loan? 18 pieces in total from 12 different companies. No more than 3 from any one company. This is from memory. I'll confirm it for you. When you do that, can you provide the company names and any contact information you have? You're not going to contact them, are you? He asked. I might. Okay. Well, if they ask you why a journalist is talking to them, you didn't get it from me. Got it. And have they been open ever since then? More or less, until now. What happened recently? They've started pushing back again. About all works or just Mondrian's? Mondrian's. Okay. Is a big museum taking on a big Mondrian exhibit, drawing off all the available paintings? I've been trying to find out that exact question. I haven't found any, though some museums love to play things extremely close to the chest. Right, Valerie said. Well, Tom, I've got to say you've intrigued me. Anything else? Not right now, Tom said. They chit-chatted a bit, remembered a few shared moments and people from college, and then she grabbed the check, saying, My editor will be happy to pay for this. He went back and immediately confirmed the 18 pieces with 12 collections and gave the information on them to Valerie. Then he waited. 3 weeks later, he had still run into headwinds getting any other Mondrians. He had kept in touch with Valerie, not that there was much to report. She had, for her part, contacted a number of the art investment companies, including many she had learned about from sources other than him. She wasn't terribly open with him, but he got the idea that she wasn't getting anywhere either. Then he got a call from her when he was in his home office. They hadn't planned one. In fact, they had nothing more to exchange, really. He was hoping to see some sort of article soon. When he saw it was her, the thought flashed across his mind that maybe she had follow-up questions. Hello? Hi, it's Valerie. Have you checked your email? Last time was a couple of hours ago. Check it again. I'll wait. He did so. He had a new email from an address he didn't recognize. He opened it. He saw that Valerie was CC'd in on the email. It read, rather formally, to Valerie Brown-Hetrick and Tom Hastings, Ph.D. It has come to my attention that you've been working together. This has to some degree sped up my plans, so feel free to congratulate yourselves. Still, I am now prepared for my big event. It happens in 24 hours. Feel free to watch yourselves and invite anyone you like via the link below. Sincerely, the Anti-Artist. Below the unknown sender's signature was a link that Tom didn't recognize and knew he really wouldn't. It was one of those sites that made shortened links to go to other sites. What am I looking at? Tom asked Valerie. Click the link. It's okay, I already have, and it doesn't seem to have any malware. Tom did so. It forwarded a couple of times, then went to a page with nothing on it but bright yellow numbers on a black background, a countdown with a little over 21 hours to go, and the name Mondrian below it. What happens then? Tom asked. And that's where we're stopping for this week. Obviously, we've come to sort of a big turn in the story. I hope you're enjoying it. If you have any comments or questions about this episode or previous episodes, cryptobiography@gmail.com, or hit us up on Facebook or Twitter. And thanks for listening. Words and music copyright 2022, CryptoBiography LLC, all rights reserved. Characters and events are fictional, fictionalized, or satirical.